It was a peaceful night at the hospital. Soft emergency lights lit up the clean walls, making everything feel calm. Nurses and doctors on the night shift talked quietly, while footsteps sometimes echoed down the empty hallways. The night seemed ordinary until the front doors opened automatically. Everyone thought it was a patient coming in, but instead a golden retriever appeared. His golden fur was dirty with dried mud, and his gentle eyes showed tiredness but determination. This was Rex, a former police dog who had served proudly. Rex walked carefully but with purpose, carrying something in his mouth, a small bundle wrapped in an old piece of cloth. The nurses looked at each other in surprise. One nurse hesitated but then stepped forward, her curiosity stronger than her fear. When they carefully unwrapped the bundle, it felt like everyone stopped breathing at once. Inside was a baby, so small and weak, struggling to breathe, with pale skin and uneven breathing. "Oh my God, it's a baby!" gasped a nurse, her voice shaking with shock. Suddenly, the quiet night erupted into action. Nurses and doctors rushed around, their quick footsteps echoing through the hallways. They quickly prepared equipment as they fought to save the fragile baby, with every second feeling crucial. Nobody in the emergency room could believe what they were seeing. A dog had walked into the hospital carrying a baby who was almost dying. Rex stood quietly and calmly, not showing fear or worry, but his eyes were pleading for help. The medical team, despite seeing many emergencies before, had never experienced anything like this. "Quick, check his breathing and heart rate," ordered one doctor, getting everyone moving. Another nurse knelt by the bundle, her hands shaking as she carefully removed the cloth. The baby's skin felt ice cold, his tiny body was dirty, and his breathing was weak and uneven. "This child is very dehydrated and underfed," the main doctor said seriously. "We need an IV now. We must help his breathing right away." The heart monitor made slow, weak beeping sounds, showing how serious the situation was. A nurse quickly connected the baby to oxygen, carefully adjusting it. Everyone worked silently, with tension in the air as they raced to save the baby. While the medical team focused on the baby, one nurse kept looking at Rex. The golden retriever stayed by the entrance, not moving, watching the child as if waiting for a miracle. He didn't bark or growl, he just watched, his eyes showing an intelligence and urgency that seemed almost human. "This is so strange. How did he know to bring the baby here?" the nurse whispered, looking amazed and confused. No one had an answer. They just knew that Rex had acted like this was the most important thing he had ever done. The doctors worked without stopping. One nurse adjusted the baby's oxygen while another checked his temperature. "Still weak, but his vital signs are starting to improve," someone said quietly. The tension eased a little as the baby's condition began to get slightly better. But they all knew it was just the beginning. The child was still in danger, but thanks to Rex, he now had a chance to live. Rex, though clearly tired, never stopped watching the baby. The room became, briefly, deeply quiet, as the medical staff realized how extraordinary this event was. News of the strange incident spread quickly through the hospital. Within minutes, the police were called for help. Officer Smith, the lead investigator, arrived with his team. As they entered the emergency room, nurses told the unbelievable story, their faces still showing shock. "We have no idea where the dog came from," the head nurse explained, her voice slightly shaking. "He brought the baby in, put him on the floor, and just stood there. That's all we know." Officer Smith narrowed his eyes, looking at Rex near the entrance. "A dog carried a baby to the hospital? That's hard to believe," he muttered, though his expression softened as he saw Rex's calm but watchful behavior. "Has anyone tried scanning for a chip?" Smith asked. A young officer stepped forward with a scanner and carefully approached Rex. But when he got too close, Rex backed away, looking tense but not aggressive. His eyes stayed alert, as if warning them not to come closer. "This dog's been trained," the young officer said. "He might be a retired service dog." Smith nodded and moved closer, moving slowly and gently. "Easy there, buddy," he said softly. Rex watched him for a moment before letting the officer put a leash on his collar. "Let's see where he came from," Smith instructed, signaling his team to follow. Rex began walking, his steps careful and steady, as if he knew exactly where to go. The officers followed closely, the flashing lights from their police cars making long shadows on the ground. They moved through the city streets quietly, with tension growing as they walked further. "Where's he taking us?" one officer whispered. Finally, Rex stopped in front of an old, run-down house in an empty part of town. The front door was partly open, like someone had left quickly. Smith frowned. "This is it," he said quietly. The officers exchanged nervous glances before carefully approaching the entrance. The smell of mold, stale air, and rotting food hit them as they went inside. Rex led them through a messy living room toward a small door at the back of the house. "Stay alert," Smith ordered, his voice low and tense. When they opened the door, they found a small dark room. In one corner was an old, dusty baby crib. Around it were signs that someone had been there recently: an empty dog food bowl, a torn blanket, and a few baby items scattered on the floor. Rex slowly went to the crib and sniffed where the baby had been. "The baby was here," an officer whispered, his face hardening as he looked around. Exhausted, Rex finally collapsed beside the crib, his body relaxing as if he was allowing himself to rest for the first time. His mission was complete. The officers continued searching the abandoned house, their flashlights cutting through dust in every corner. The wooden floor creaked under their boots with each careful step. Everything in the house showed long-term neglect. Chairs were knocked over, cabinets were empty, and the dining table was covered with crumpled papers. "It looks like whoever lived here left in a hurry," one officer remarked, looking through the scattered documents on the table. Meanwhile, another officer explored the kitchen. The sink was full of dirty dishes, and a faint smell of rotting food hung in the air. On the counter, a crumpled envelope caught his attention. He picked it up, opened it, and found a handwritten letter inside. The writing was shaky, as if written under great stress. "There's a letter here," he announced, then began reading aloud. "I no longer have the strength to care for him. Everything around me is falling apart. All I have left is Rex, and I know he'll do the right thing. I hope that one day someone will forgive me." His voice faded as the final words echoed in the silence. The letter had no signature, but its message was painfully clear. "Sorry for the interruption." Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. The writer had reached complete desperation, trusting their child to the only companion they had left, their loyal dog, Rex. "Rex has been watching over the baby this whole time," one officer murmured, looking at the golden retriever lying beside the crib. Rex stayed still, though his ears moved slightly, still alert to his surroundings. "We need to find the mother," Officer Smith ordered firmly. "We have enough evidence to know that she's in serious trouble." The officers began questioning the few neighbors who still lived in the area. After some time, they found an elderly man who remembered who had lived in the house before. "I remember the young woman who lived here," the man said, leaning on his cane. "She was always with a big dog. That must be him, right?" He nodded toward Rex. "I think she was going through a hard time." I saw her with a baby a few months back, but then she just disappeared." The story was becoming clearer. The woman had been overwhelmed by hardship, and in a moment of despair she trusted Rex, the dog who had protected her family until the end. Based on clues from the letter and what the neighbors said, the police widened their search. After several hours, they heard about a young woman wandering tiredly at a nearby park. When the team arrived, they found her sitting still on a bench, hugging herself against the cold. Her eyes looked empty, her face was thin, and her hair was messy. Officer Smith approached carefully, keeping his tone serious but gentle. He chose his words carefully. "We found a child who was brought to the hospital. A dog led us to an abandoned house nearby. Do you know anything about this? We need to ensure the child's safety." When he mentioned the child, the woman's eyes widened in shock and hope. "Ben, is it my son? Is he alive?" she stammered, her voice shaking as tears ran down her face. She put her hands over her mouth, her body trembling with emotion. Smith looked at his team, realizing they had found the right person. He nodded gently and reassured her. "We found him. Ben is currently getting treatment at the hospital. He's stable, but still being watched closely." Amy broke down crying. After days of despair, she finally heard a bit of hope. Medical staff quickly put her on a stretcher to check her condition. As they headed back to the hospital, Amy began telling her story. "Ben's father left us right after he was born," she said, her voice rough with pain. "I tried to hold on, but everything fell apart. We ran out of food, out of money. I couldn't keep going." Amy paused, her eyes distant as she remembered the dark times. "Rex, he was always there for us. He never left my side or Ben's. When I was too weak to go on, I told Rex. I asked him to take Ben somewhere safe." Silence filled the ambulance as the officers and medical staff understood the weight of her words. The idea of a dog guiding a child to the hospital seemed impossible. Yet Rex had done exactly that. When the ambulance arrived at the hospital, Amy was taken to the pediatric care unit. Her heart beat fast as she approached the door. Despite his exhaustion, Rex stood and walked beside her, his gaze steady and watchful. Inside the room, Amy saw her son lying on a small bed surrounded by medical equipment. His breathing was steady, and his skin no longer looked deathly pale. Tears filled her eyes as she gently touched his tiny face. "Ben, my baby," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. Rex stood quietly at the doorway, watching over them with calm, attentive eyes. Amy turned to him, overcome with gratitude. "Thank you, Rex. You saved my son. You saved my family," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. The doctors and officers stood quietly, moved by the powerful moment happening before them. Rex was no ordinary dog. He was a protector, a silent hero who had completed his mission with unwavering loyalty and love. Amy was allowed to stay by Ben's side as doctors continued to monitor his condition. After several hours, Ben began to show clear signs of recovery. Though still weak, he started to respond faintly to his mother's familiar voice. Amy gently held his tiny hand, her eyes filled with love and hope. Rex lay near the doorway, his body still tired but his ears alert. The doctors and nurses who had witnessed the entire story couldn't hide their admiration for the loyal dog. One nurse smiled and gently patted Rex's head, whispering, "You're a real hero. Thanks to you, this little boy is alive." Rex wagged his tail slightly, as if he understood the heartfelt praise. Amy looked at Rex with deep gratitude. "You saved us, Rex. I'll never forget what you've done," she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. After a few days of treatment, the doctors confirmed that Ben was out of danger and steadily improving. Thanks to the dedicated care of the medical staff, the boy was slowly regaining his strength. Meanwhile, social workers at the hospital stepped in to help Amy find temporary housing and access essential support. The day Amy was discharged came on a bright, sunny morning. She held Ben in her arms, her face showing both tiredness and renewed hope as she walked through the hospital doors. Sunlight touched her son's face. Ben opened his eyes wide in curiosity, looking at his mother before giving her a small, gentle smile, the first one she had seen in days. Rex walked beside them, his posture steady but alert, as though he still had a duty to protect them. Amy stopped, bent down to stroke Rex's golden head and whispered, "We made it, Rex. Thanks to you, we have a chance to start over." News of their emotional story had spread throughout the local community. When Amy arrived at her new home, strangers came with small gifts for Ben, clothes, food, and toys. Some even offered job opportunities to Amy, eager to help her rebuild her life. The first few days in their new home were challenging, but with the support of kind neighbors and Rex's unwavering loyalty, Amy knew she no longer had to face everything alone. She watched as Ben crawled across the floor, his bright, lively eyes full of wonder. "We made it through, Rex," she said softly, stroking the dog's head. Rex looked at her with his warm, wise eyes, as if to say he understood. Rex's story was not just one of miraculous survival. It was a testament to love and loyalty that went beyond all boundaries. Amy, Ben, and Rex's emotional journey has ended with a hopeful new beginning, but this story teaches us something even deeper. The power of loyalty, love, and sacrifice can change a family's destiny forever. Did you enjoy this story? What would you do if you were in a desperate situation like Amy? Would you trust someone or something to help you? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. True loyalty and love can overcome the greatest challenges.